Hi, so in several previous videos actually when I've been making models I've been talking about this stuff. Now it is an amazingly versatile material, so I thought I would give it its own video really to give quite a lot more information about it, because obviously in the other videos what I'm doing is another project, so I quickly blast through what this is. So this video is all about this stuff and how to use it. And we're going to make a model of a lab balance actually out of it. So we're going to use it and describe what it is, and that's what the video is all about. It is something I call builder's board. Now that's just something I call it, I think. It's also called cellular foam board. It's used in roofline an awful lot, so you'll see it a lot in fascias and soffits. This one's a soffit, which is why it's flat and it doesn't have an angle. And this one is a fascia, which is why it's got that angle on it. Now this one's been lying in my garden for about a year, so that's why it's so dirty. But it's really easy to clean actually. You can clean it with UPVC cleaner, or this stuff, which is a Sebesto product. It's their Type 10 cleaner. Cleans it up like new. It's actually really beautiful. So as you know, I have quite dirty hands, because I do an awful lot of work with them and they get dirty, and I'll be touching the models and the models are white, so they'll get dirty too. But a quick wipe over with the Type 10 cleaner and they come up nice and shiny, so they make really beautiful objects in themselves actually. Predominantly this stuff is sold in white. Now roofline, which is fascia and soffit, is one of the large areas of this, and for that you can get flat boards, perforated boards, L-shaped boards in a whole range of sizes. Now they usually come 9mm or 15mm thick, and you can get them 100mm wide or 400mm wide. So you can get absolutely massive boards. I mean 400mm, it's about that big, it's huge. And so you can do really quite large and complicated models with them. But they do come in much smaller sizes as well. So window fitters use them as fillet pieces when they add the windows in. And you can get square edge, you can get double bullnose edge. And they go down as far as 3mm, 5mm, 9mm. And you can get them in a whole range of widths, starting at 1 centimetre and going up to 50mm. So right the way from about 10mm up to 400mm you can buy this board. Now Flowplast, that's F-L-O-P-L-A-S-T, they do exactly the same board but used for skirting. So you can get profiles on it as well, and you can get skirting boards on it at a range of different sizes from 25mm up to 200mm, 250mm. The main supplier of this actually is a company called Eurocell. That's E-U-R-O-C-E-L-L. So if you look for Eurocell board, you'll be able to find what this actually is, and they're the main supplier of that board. There's an awful lot of knockoffs, obviously, and you can get a whole range of qualities. So Eurocell actually makes sure that there's no voids in the foam core, and that's really useful. And sometimes there's a swelling at the end here that Eurocell makes sure doesn't appear. And the better quality boards are nice and even and square. The poorer quality boards do have irregularities in them, but to be honest it's not much of an issue. It really isn't. You just cut around the irregularity and go to the bit that's actually square and you're just fine with it really. So it's not that much of an issue. Now obviously we've used this for making lots and lots of models. Here's our early prototype wind generator, which is just a section of that board with a speaker glued on the back, and so I just cut a length out of it. It took me about 10 minutes to do that. So the benefit of this stuff is it's so easy to make enormously complicated models. Here's one of a Newman motor that I was working on, and I've got one of a set of cogs that I did on a previous one. So you can make complicated models that have great rigidity with the minimum tools very, very quickly indeed, and that's where you get the benefit from. Now this stuff actually glues together superbly easily with cyanoacrylic glues, so your crazy glue or your super glue. It goes along the edge there and you press it against there. Now there is a hardener available for this as well. You spray the hardener on, you put the glue on one side, the minute you touch it, it's stuck. And the glue bond actually is stronger than the original material. So if you try to break that bond, what you'll end up with is you'll snap this bit off and you'll have that bit roughly stuck onto there. So it's really a very tough bond. So if you're cutting it square, you're going to get square connections and uprights and fillet pieces that can all be square to each other, and that's a huge challenge, obviously. Now this stuff is made square, so if you're cutting it square, you're going to get beautiful results out of it where everything is in line and square. It cuts really stupidly easily. I mean, you can cut this stuff just using a carpet knife. About 4 or 5 scores will go straight the way through a 9mm board. If you use a handsaw, it's a pleasure to cut actually, because it just cuts like butter. It's really smooth. If you use a circular saw, you're really not going to wear your circular saw out. It just whizzes through it at a rate of knots. Now, as we're at that point actually, I suppose I should give a word of warning that this may actually contain peanuts. So, if you've got a peanut allergy, then don't use it. I mean, I'm joking, obviously, because that's the kind of backside covering statement you're supposed to make these days, isn't it? So here is the real backside covering statement. It is a polyurethane foam, so the dust may cause harm. So if you're worried about those kind of things, then wear a mask. Okay, there you go, health and safety nuts. I've done my bit. But the pleasure of this, as I say, is being able to work with it so easily. Now let me give you a close-up of what this edge looks like, so you get a better idea of what it's actually like. So this is the pinwheel windmill generator that we made, and you can see that it's mostly made of that foam board. Here is the foam core, and it has a nice bright white PVC laminate on the top, and that's actually quite soft, and that's the bit that you want to try to make face outwards because it looks nice. And then it has a different laminate on the back. Now you get 2 types. This one is ribbed, and I personally find those ribs to be an absolute nuisance. And then you get a type that has no ribs, which is the one that I prefer to use. Again, this is made from that stuff lying in my garden, and I haven't cleaned it. But as you can see, it makes the angles and fillets, and the board itself is a soft white PVC, a harder foam core that's probably a polyurethane, and then a tougher off-white plastic coating that I'm not sure what it is on the reverse side actually. And like I say, you can see that it makes quite complicated shapes, glues together easily, and you can make some beautiful models out of it. So what we're going to make is a beam balance. It's actually quite useful, obviously, and quite a delicate instrument. You can use it for weighing quite accurately weight, so you can use it for measuring forces on things. So quite a cool bit of kit, really. Now we're going to make it out of this bit of board, and you can rely on this edge being square. So quite a lot of your measurements really need to come from here. If you put a square onto there, then you'll do nice square lines. So the beam balance is going to be about 150mm high, and then a 300mm beam, and maybe a 100 by 100 base, maybe a bit bigger. As long as we get 2 uprights with a beam balancing on it, we have a beam balance. We need to make sure that the beam won't actually hit anything, and that's about all there is we need to do. So we know we need a base, some uprights and a beam, and as we have that in mind, then you can pretty much just make it up as you go along, which is what I'm going to do as it happens. So I'll make up those bits and get them cut out. So there's the basic structure marked up. I mean, it's a bit difficult to see, but there's the base, there's the uprights, there's the beam. Beam's 300, uprights 150, base 150 by 150. It's the basic structure. What we'll do is cut it out, put it together, have a think about it, and modify it a bit as we go along. Now to do that, I used a square, a Sharpie, and a ruler, and that's the tools that I needed. Now I am going to cut this out on a circular saw, but equally, like I say, you could use a handsaw, or you could use a carpet knife. Anyway, I'm going to cut those out, and it'll make a little bit more sense once they're cut out. Okay, so there's the bits cut out. These bits make the central pillars, so they're the central pillars and a couple of angles to keep them rigid. This section's the base. That's the base. It's 150 by 150, and we've got some little edging strips to put underneath again to make it rigid. This bit here is the balance beam. These bits here are the lands. That'll become clearer when it's actually put together. So I haven't really gone much into the sizes of these things because really it's up to you. I mean, I picked 150 by 150 just because I like the size. I made it 150 tall, and so that's 300 long. I think that'll be enough, but again, you can make it as big or as little as you like. So all we have to do really now is glue them together. Okay, so I've glued those bits together. There's the base, and I've also glued the uprights. They're the lands that I was talking about, and the uprights obviously go on like that. Then I've made the balance beam, and the balance beam goes onto the uprights like that. Now the balance beam has a couple of extra additions. Here what it balances on is in fact a carpet knife blade. So there's a carpet knife blade right in the centre there, supported by these end beams, and then there's got a couple of curtain hooks on it there that'll take the pans, and a little pin, a brass pin there, and that'll allow me to see whether it's off centre or not. So I might put a little thing here with some marks on it so I can see how far it is off centre. The other thing I've made is this, which is a pendulum bob. It goes on the bottom of the balance beam like that, and it gives it a bit of time as it unbalances so that we can actually get this thing in true, because we have to true it up after we've made it. And then the other thing I made is a couple of pans. They're just discs cut out of the builder's board, and I pushed some brass pins in there, 3 of them, and they'll be what hang from those hooks to make the balance beam pans. So now all I have to do is glue that together. Okay, that's it glued together, and you can see I put the pendulum on. That just gives it time to balance it actually, and that just sits on there like that, and ta-da! Now the pans, I've just added a bit of string, but you got loads of choices. A bit of chain would be really nice, that would make it look very pretty indeed. And if we hang the pans on, and it's not quite balanced, you just take a washer and oops, drop the washer on the unbalanced end. And that should balance it. The further out the washer is, the more effect it has. The nearer in, the less effect. So you can move that washer backwards and forwards to get this balanced right. You also need to make sure that you're lining it up on the centre of the lands every time. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to put a mark on the lands to get it lined up. Then it's really easy to use. You put a known weight on one side and you measure out on the other side. But like I say, it can also be used for force measurements because it is incredibly sensitive. That needle would be nice if it had a little scale there so that you could see, and you can do those kind of additions. Now it's, I think, quite a pretty cool little model, and does have quite a lot of uses actually. But the point has not been to make a balance. I mean, a balance is an awesome thing to make because it's just fun and teaches you a lot about weighing. But it is to learn a bit more about this material here, this builder's board, and in using it to construct models of all kinds. It is incredibly rapid, incredibly easy to do, and does a very nice stable job, as you can see. Planning your model is all just about working out what the net would look like. If you want to buy this material, in the UK for sure, which is where I'm from, it's freely available. It's all over the place, it's in massive amount of sizes. I did look on ebay.com, and it is available on eBay. And as I say, the main suppliers are Eurocell and Flowplast, although there are lots of other types. Anyway, I hope that was of interest to you, and thank you very much for watching.